Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. It's Billy here again from 47 Wolves, All I Am. I've got Andrew G Holt with me today, and I welcome Andrew. Andrew's a wealth of knowledge. He's a very passionate school teacher, studied many things in his lifetime, and he'll share that a bit more in a minute. Reiki, kinesiology, yoga, medical intuition. Andrew's also an author of multiple books, mainly towards children, but also with their parents as well. But I'll let him explain that a bit more. Welcome, Andrew, and thanks very much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome, Billy. Thank you for inviting me to come to your podcast.
Uh,
Happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Andrew, so we might begin with just a bit of your background so the people that don't know you have a bit more understanding of your journey and what's led you to be where you are now, if that's okay.
I'm actually visiting my parents at the moment in Young Heads, the family photo when I
Family
was about
photo,
10.
beautiful. Yep.
But yeah, I'm in Young in country New South Wales, and I had grandparents on a farm. Sort of grew up with sheep and cattle, and but always was curious to go overseas. So by part of me leaving, I went to uni in Bathurst and studied to become a primary school teacher. But in my third year, I was able to go to Indonesia as part of teaching English as a foreign language, which helped me get my first job as an ESL Indonesian teacher in Canberra. So while I was over there, I got this thirst of understanding and love of different cultures, and I've really got that thirst of adventure and curiosity in how children learn and how what can we share with them of this world um, to broaden their horizons. Because I was a country boy with not many, quite narrow with my outlook on life, and so I've been able to use teaching to learn through that and to use travel with teaching in many locations, including a number of Indigenous communities in Australia, over in the UK and Indonesia, and just travel through other different destinations as well. Yeah, um, that's a bit about my background. So,
Yeah, very good. And you've obviously just quickly, but you've obviously spent in other areas of your life apart from teaching. It sounds like, and I've met you a number of times. You're very much that thirst for learning. So not just in teaching and children, but all the other modalities and things that you've studied over the time.
so my curiosity led me. I think it was in 2008 to have a break from teaching to go to. I was in Darwin at the time, having gifted and talented children, which I was getting them to run small businesses to try and keep it real. When I was working in the Indigenous community in WA and Wyndham, those kids taught me to keep it real. Otherwise, I just don't turn up to your class because it's not meaningful for me. They have that little bit more agency. And then when I was in Darwin, I really saw how kinesiology had changed a child's their whole personality and approach to learning. And so I thought I'm going to have a break from teaching and go to Brizzy and study kinesiology. And during that time, it taught me of where we hold the stresses in our body, understanding the Chinese meridian system and energy system in our body through the Chinese and then also the Indian, the chakra system, the energies and the philosophies and psychology behind a lot of that, which I found was very curious to relate that to children and learning as well as human existence, really.
Yeah.
And so I went and studied, and then that was when and I got into a little bit of yoga studies as well, um, and Reiki at that same time of understanding how the energy. I was a bit stressed at the time. Someone said, try Reiki. I thought, oh, what is that? I'll go and give it a go. I'll give anything a go when I was feeling stressed. And then I discovered that I really enjoyed that process and became a teacher in that as well and a facilitator in that
Beautiful.
yoga, that Reiki system. And that evolved, merged with kinesiology and studied that. And while I was studying that in Brisbane, I taught in over 200 schools. And I realized just how stressed that system was and the children and teachers within it. And part of my journey then, I was curious to go to India, and I threw myself in a couple of ashrams to sort of understand what this mindfulness is, understand what this mind is, and yoga philosophy. I wanted to go and investigate some of the different methods, and so I did that through my own personal experience and really enjoyed it. And um, which led to my teacher training in 2015 for a month, mainly for my own personal understanding of philosophy of the yoga, but also to share that in my teaching with the children as well, where I incorporate that in to help them relax and understand and be in their bodies. During that time, I realized how, in that time in Brisbane, I realized, as I said before, how stressed everyone was. And with my understanding of kinesiology, my understanding of it, my experience of working with children, both Indigenous, gifted, and many other types of children, if you want to put the labels on them, um, uh, that made me realize I just wanted to sort of do more than what I was doing in the classroom. And I came up with the inspiration to write children's books mixed with ancient and modern wisdom, put them in simple rhymes, and to help ground them, but also their parents. And how do we have wise, cool children? Because we want to be wise through our experience. And so one of the ways we do that is that we ask ourselves questions on our journey. So if we can get good habits of doing that when we're young, so when a lesson in life or an incident happens, we can have the skills to reflect within ourselves, as well as ask other people when needed. So, and that brought me. I'll just jump into the first book was The Wise Apple Tree Helps Me.
Right.
Top tips for wise kids. I was 37, couldn't afford an illustrator, so I had to use my mindset and change that to adjust to illustrating a book after practicing for a year. So these were my
Oh,
sort
they're
of
your own drawings, are they? Yep.
they were my illustrations.
Beautiful.
Uh, yeah. So asking for help. We all, I'll just read the first part if you don't
Yeah.
mind. I'll
Yeah,
give
that's
it a
fine. No
share.
problem. No problem.
It says, Grandpa Joe at school, you see that. I'll just see if I can put the image there. I can remember what it says.
Yep. Yep.
Grandpa Joe at school, you see, there's lots of people picking on me. I don't know what to think, say, or do, and I've had enough. I want to quit. It's far too tough. Even at home, I feel like I'm in a bubble, and I make mistakes and I get into trouble. I don't know what to think, say, or do, so I just go and sit on the loo. So, and then I have affirmations like, do I have the courage to ask for help? Because children often feel like they might get into trouble if they speak up or something like that. And that can be in the workplace for us. So, how that relates to parents, they can go, well, yeah, who do I ask for help? Do I ask anyone for help myself? So, and how am I modeling that? So, we need to be the model we wish our children to be, particularly in those younger years when we're setting up their hard drive in those first 7 years of because they say, the statistics say we revert back to how we were programmed. 90%, 90 or 95% of our actions today come from that. So, so that's it's like a parent guide as well, but a fun way to look at it yourself without having to read a whole text on parenting.
Yeah.
How do I
Yeah.
train my brain? Is my fertilizing myself or poisoning myself with my thoughts? So lots of different topics of kind acts and how do I deal with bullies and what are my goals and do I have a plan? So things that you can have a conversation with your children around, and also have it in a version where there's actually this colouring in version where there's actually space after kids colour it in, and then there's space where they can either
Oh,
write or
beautiful.
draw.
So it's very interactive
Um,
then.
yeah, it becomes interactive because dive deep. We all know that we can have a discussion about something, but do we have a plan? Do we? And when we start to write and get our neural pathways involved through writing or drawing, then that becomes more likely we can embed that change or that awareness within ourselves.
Beautiful. And Andrew, I love, first and foremost, I was just going to mention before, I love how you've gone out and you're not just a teacher from the textbook. You've broadened your experiences and your horizons, and then brought that into your teaching, and obviously through to your books that you write. I love that it incorporates the children, and obviously, as you were saying, the first 7 years are quite influential. But to bring the parents directly involved in that journey together, that was obviously part of your strategy, I guess, putting the book together.
Yeah, 100%. It was, I've always felt like as a teacher, we're a partnership. The parent, the child, and myself, we all have the best intentions for our children to be in our care, to be the best version of themselves, and to be able to communicate that in my classroom, but also through my books as well. And then also later on, a little bit more as a whole school approach of how to run a classroom or how to support your children in the home as well, which is in another book.
Yeah, that's great. I love the. Would it be fair, and you might be able to elaborate on this a bit more, the concept that you've got and taking for the kids to have those books, what you're trying to teach in school, in school classroom and etc. How that correlates to how they're getting taught or the culture or the environment they've got at home. It's important that they have that consistency. Would that be fair?
Yeah, 100%. Like if we're all on the same page, then the children know that and feel that they're supported as best we can, and sometimes that my work is around yeah, self-awareness, social awareness, and responsibility. So sometimes we need to take a good look at ourselves as an adult, whether I'm running a classroom or being a parent with my children. That how am I being the best version of myself, and am I looking at how what my patterns are as well in reacting and responding? Not always easy, obviously, and children can pick that as patterns up quite easily and remind you at times, for sure. And they're often our best teachers
Yeah.
in that sense as well. I get my children like earlier on, probably after 9 years of teaching, the children in the classroom, I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, I'm wanting you to be the best versions of you. Where am I asking you to give me feedback on being the best version of a teacher for me? So I get them to give me a report whenever I have a classroom. I get the children. I frame it differently for different age groups, of course, and then I ask them for feedback around different areas of my teaching, so I can have their through their lens might pick up something that I don't in my own self-reflective um,
Yeah.
reflections
Perfect.
of my teaching.
Yeah.
So
What?
yeah, it's a group thing to get, yeah. So it has to be really, I feel. It takes a community to raise children, and also to listen to children, especially when they're young. I'm not especially, but young children have like a purity and an honesty of how they can see things as well. And they've shown me some alternate things as well. When I've sometimes taken gemstones into a classroom, and I have children make different grids or put it on their body without me saying anything at all. And I ask what they're doing, and then they tell me that this one's telling me to go over here, and this will create this energy pattern. It's like, oh, really? Okay. Can you tell me some more? And yeah, so they elaborate on that, and just on my knowledge of what I've read on ancient Lemuria or Atlantis and things like that, or what people did in those times. Yeah, I have the awareness of different things. They even talk about if you sit on this crystal or something, you go to a different, you portal down a different dimension, and that I'm just listening to their stories, and they use the gemstones as like a set of Lego in the classroom, and build different roads and things around. So that's just one aspect of other things, and then I do a little bit of meditation, or I get children to guide through meditation. I've had children could see energy around me, um, yeah, and ask me to lie down on the floor and put crystal on me as if I needed the healing or something.
Yep.
So it's just being I've had a young boy used to tell me, did I believe in dragons? I said, why wouldn't I? And then he went into share his vision of different dragons and what they are waiting to come back to this world, and doing different things. Like I think I create my feeling is that my job is to create a space for kids to feel safe enough to express whatever it is without judgment.
Yep.
And where that leads to there, it's none of my business. But if they want to explore it, I'll give them opportunities to explore that.
Yeah.
And that's what I do in the Wise Kids Quest, where children come along and they, some my frustration sometimes in the system at the moment is that um, in a world where we have access to infinite amount of information, we're not allowing children to follow their heart's desires and and dive deep into that, and then explore and then present that how they wish to us. And so that's not part of the curriculum. So I've created these Wise Kids quests, as I call them, where they come and they get a little bit of foundation in them, have a vision, make a staff of the symbol of what sort of leader they want to be in their lives, and then um, we do a few games around their strength, understanding strengths and weaknesses, and then they get invited to come on an 8 week journey to put mentored each week to then manifest what they feel like they want. And just, it's not so much the end destination, it's the journey along the way when things don't work out, how to become resilient to that as well. Because we love our children to be resilient in this world. And so to be able to fail and have support around you on their journey, not intentionally, but life brings failure, hiccups on the way, but just having those tools that I embed through mindfulness and other different strategies along the way, and
I
which
love
they
it.
can become leaders to their own journey.
Beautiful. I love you mentioned the word create space before. I was going to bring that up myself. I love the fact that you've create that space in the classroom that the kids feel comfortable and feel safe to explore, to be themselves first and foremost, because they are influenced a lot by you as a teacher, by their parents and other influences, like you say, in the first 7 years,
The
particularly,
curriculum, yeah,
and the curriculum, and they get taught and they get measured a lot of the times. You know this better than I do, but I remember back at school, if you yeah you were measured by against all the other students, and based on what you know in mathematics or science or English or reading, and almost sort of measuring what's the expression, measuring fish by how they walk.
yeah,
Yeah, and they don't individualise it. I understand the system is trying their best, but they've got their flaws. But it's wonderful that the kids that come into your classroom have got that environment that, that brings that all sort of,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I do try, and it is tricky in the classroom because you're under so many in the system. You're under so many time constraints on getting all the content across. But whenever I can, I try and create space for when they're finished to go into what I call a passion or a interest project. Um, I do the Wise Kids sit outside the system for those either both mainstream or homeschooling children as well. I've
yeah.
both participated in that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
just talking about homeschooling. I was talking to someone the other day. They were saying, through obviously with COVID and everything else that happened back in 2020, there's been a quite an escalation in the amount of homeschooling kids now. I think they were taught. Don't quote me on the numbers, but they were saying it's up near 15%. So there's a lot of kids out there that aren't necessarily going to school, but have the opportunity to pick up books like yourself and have that environment that they can work on and enhance at home.
Yeah, I mean that's the good thing with my the resources that I created. It doesn't matter what environment, like in a classroom situation, you can look at them and after lunch there's usually that quiet down reflective time, so you can get and create that pattern for different chapters in the book, or you can use that at home in the homeschooling environment as well. So it's very versatile in that aspect.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What age group, Andrew, are the Wise Kids series? Is that
It's really aimed from 4 to 12 year olds. The 4 year olds
okay?
love the books, and you can just go, "I wonder what Grandpa Joe's got to say," and then you can open up and just have a little. There's two stanzas of rhymes, have a discussion around what kind of acts I could do today. So it can be as young as even 2 or 3 year olds, especially. And I think with the importance with the parents to reflect on those questions as well when they're really young. So I say it's really from when they really even 1 or 2, and then or even when they're in pre literacy, even when they're in the womb, you can just be reading stuff because everything's taken in, of course. So I say, I'm an idea if for young ones for 4 to 12, but I say before that as well as it's great, and it's
Yeah,
also good for parents. And I have had adults who've had some sort of needing to self-reflect on life, really enjoy and get therapeutic value out of colouring in and just reflecting on those questions as well. So the targeted age has been for the primary school sector, but I've had special needs children with Asperger's in high school as well as um, primary. They love them and they quote me on them. They really trying to understand the relationship aspect, and many have really good memories, the high functioning, and they just really enjoyed it. It wasn't really my intention to target that group, but it's really interesting to see how it's evolved and how each person's taken it. I've even had people who work in juvenile detention centres for young adults say, look, their literacy rates are around about this level. I'm going to try anything. This is something that they need, and they might take it up. I don't know how it went, but I remember a couple of people that came to my stall said that as well.
It's wonderful that your books are being able to reach out to not just your age group that you spoke about, but other areas. And I didn't realise the detention centres. That makes complete sense. If they've quite often they'll end up in those sorts of places because of their inability, or not inability, but they've struggled at school and felt they didn't belong, so they've gone down that path. It's petty crime, whatever's led them to be where they are, and they haven't had that learning. So for them to rediscover the joy of books and to rediscover all the concepts that you bring in your books, like behaviours and leadership and compassion for others, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the good thing, like their foundation, like they're quite foundational books, and they're for humanity. It's not one religion or another religion. It's for everyone. It's like, I guess is a non-denominational type thing. It goes right across the board.
Yeah, and it comes from a very holistic perspective that you have, not just being your experience in the classroom as a teacher, but like you say, all your travels and going out even in indigenous areas where it's a different background, different cultures. So you've been able to feels like you've been able to bring that holistic approach to your books, which then doesn't alienate or exclude anyone. It's all inclusive from what I've seen.
Yeah. So and that sort of led into I just jump onto the next thing that I was going to share. Which felt like sharing is it led into another book, which is how I create a positive environment in the classroom,
Please do.
and how parents can do at home. It's through one method of seeing and acknowledging children for what we love in them, what we want, because we want to see and encourage them to be like their personality, not so much the information, but who are you becoming as a person. So one day I was standing in, I think it was around Caboolture, one of the schools down there, and the children were everywhere, and there's about three lining up, and all of a sudden my hand reached out and said to these kids, "Oh my goodness, I love how you are, all three of you, so organized, ready for coming into class, and here is a shooting star." And they're like, "What is a shooting star?" And at the time I'm like, "Oh, what is a shooting star, Andrew? Quick think." And I said to them, "Don't you know?" And they were like, "No, we don't know." And I was like, "Come on, Andrew, what is—" And I said, "Well, you guys are so, I love how you're organized. And you've got to grab this shooting star first of all, because if you don't, it's going to go lost in the universe. And then because it's a good memory, you've got to, you can either eat it so it goes inside, or you can put it straight in your heart, because that's where we want our good memories." And
Beautiful.
because I was making a big deal, all the other kids got curious and all started to come in. And that's where the origins started. And so then I trialed having some different values of kindness, helpfulness, resilient, which is bouncing back for the younger ones, persistent or not giving up, teamwork, a number of different ones. And then I made little posters and gave and created tokens to give shooting stars for when I saw those qualities, which are often related to school values in some of the schools. Um, but where the power comes, my job is just to model. Oh, that's another example of organized, and that's another example of bouncing back when something doesn't go right too. So everyone in the classroom is getting, a filing cabinet of all these examples, and then the children are sitting there going, waiting for this figure of authority to acknowledge them. It's like, hang on, guys, you guys are lazy here. Oh, you've got a brain in two eyes. You can start acknowledging your mates. So that's when I get them to put their hand up and say, I want to give a shooting star to my friend Jack because he passed the ball in soccer, or my friend Sarah for helping me with this problem I had with my girlfriend, or something like that. And then they look at their friend and they shoot them the star and go and give a token. Um, it's part of the reticular activating system, is one of the reasons why I did it. The reticular activating system, if you look it up, it's a filter for our environment where we get millions of bits of information in front of us all the time, and it filters out what we decide to focus on. So one of the example is, if you buy a brand new car, then you're driving and go, oh my gosh, there's another one the same color as me. I didn't realize there's so many different. Or a pregnant woman will all of a sudden say that all the women I meet are pregnant. It's not that they're pregnant or that you've got the same car as everyone else. It's just because you've focused on that. That's your reticular activating system picking up all those other ones in the environment. When I learned that, I was like, hang on a minute. I tuned into what children were saying in the classroom, like I always get bullied, or I always get a goal in soccer or something like that. And then I go, well, actually, you nearly always do get a goal in soccer, or actually you are getting bullied. I was like, what are you focusing on, and how are you bringing it into your life more? And so this was part of the behind the factor of a shooting star. What am I focusing on with the children in the class? How can they focus on and bring more of those leadership qualities, and call them out in each other, which is sort of it's a kind act when you acknowledge someone. When I do draw, because as I mentioned before, I learned how to draw some cartoons. So when I do cartoon lessons with the kids of shooting a star to someone and making a card, um, the younger kids, often junior primary up to about 8, they often draw love hearts around the stars as well. So that taught me when I first looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, these kids don't see any difference between giving a shooting star or to give someone a shot of love, because they've been seen and acknowledged. And we all want to be seen and acknowledged. And so it's really changed the whole dynamics around the classroom. Again, it's inclusive of everyone, which alongside my other books has that theme. It's like we can participate when you learn something. It's really good to move your body. And when I spoke to you, actually, at one of my stalls, a neuroscientist came and she said, I really love what you're doing because when we get in a negative experience, it gets embedded straight away into the back of our brain. But for us to change our neural pathways, we really need to ruminate on those good experiences, and anywhere up to like half a minute or 40 seconds or something, she was telling me around, to be able and to revisit that. And she said, what I love about what you're doing is that you're revisiting it daily as part of the culture of your classroom. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And some people have said I should do my master's in it and do further studies. Um, that's to be decided down the track. But at the moment, I do know what it works, and to see the joy in children's faces when they share, acknowledge each other. And I do say to them, it takes, of course, they give it to their friends in the beginning and they say, I want to give one to my friend Billy because he's my best buddy. I say, oh, no. What did Billy say or do that makes him a good buddy? You got to make that star powerful, otherwise you can't really give a shooting star. Right? You need to make it meaningful, so that gets the neural pathways working. Um, so that's been quite interesting. I did get children to, practice doing it at home with their families, and I had one mum in tears because her child acknowledged her and gave her a star for persisting and being away 3 nights of the week, and thank you, Mum, for persisting and helping us stay together as a family. And I said, what did Mum do? She said she hugged me and cried. So
Oh, beautiful.
when your children start, and she was only 8, I think, and so when the children start to see you as well, for what you're doing for them, well, how powerful is that?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a two-way street. As parents, we can definitely, and teachers, we can learn a lot from our children as well as they learn from us. So I love, Andrew, that you not just directing it towards each individual and their journeys and their learnings, but also creating that culture where they're encouraged to look at actions of others as well. So it's a very togetherness, and like you said before, it takes a village to raise a child. It's almost that self. I don't want to use the word governance, but they're actually identifying the positives in not just themselves, which is great. Like you said, we get acknowledged, and it's great to be thanked and everything else. But to then be able to have the empowerment to be able to do that and see that in others, and like you say, they might start with their friends, but then it broadens their viewpoint where they start to look at all the positives that everyone's doing, which neuro pathways, it just changes their whole attitude towards life, doesn't it? I would imagine.
It really does. When I was in East Tennant Creek in 2018 and 19, at the time it wasn't called a shooting star, I was doing high fives. But it was such a small community, and I had these laminated hands all around with the qualities. And some of the kids were asked, can we take that home and put it in our house? And it's like, of course. And because it was such a small community, I was able to create them and put little double Velcro dots. And so they went home, and so they become the teachers in their house. I didn't really stay there very long enough to see how that eventuated, but that's the type of potential it can have, because they just want their family to feel good as well, and so they know how they feel when they're being acknowledged, and so they then become the leaders and the wise kids that we wish them to be. And
Beautiful.
that's why all these things that I create comes under the umbrella of the wise kids movement, because through self-reflection, I think that's what I'm doing through self-reflection of our journey and through seeing and acknowledging what we love. I think they're the main two focuses, and then also then putting it into a journey through the Wise Kids Quest, where they can go on their own mentor journey and incorporating that's probably it in a nutshell, really.
Yeah, I love the concept's all very consistent, but it's because of that journeying and the interaction with the colouring in and the journals that each individual student can then orientate that towards their own experiences and their own family life at home and how their perspectives are, but still maintaining that consistent message that you're delivering.
Yeah, and then moving on to the latest thing was I find such connection in nature, and we're being remote, often teaching either in the Northern Territory or other locations. Um, that has been my sort of, I guess, my calming place, my place of just contemplation. And I really feel that is the medicine needed for children to balance out, whether they're out running around with a soccer ball in nature or walking in nature, or doing some activity outside. I really feel that's essential to having a wise, balanced children, especially with our digital world that we have. And the addiction that we can all feel the draw card to that. So that's what led me into doing this. The
The
Yeah, the
nature
nature
talks,
talk.
yeah, elaborate on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll elaborate that. Yeah, so I took when I was at remote, I took all these photos from when I was teaching from the Northern Territory to around. You can see in that one there. I was flying over to Darwin
Oh
and I
wow, yeah, yeah.
saw this hand which is in amongst all these dry riverbeds waving to me, and so the idea is to look through the journal. I have some themes like this one is on fire.
Okay, yeah,
So the idea is to, okay, what does fire mean to you? Sit in with it. I mean, you might be in the city, but it might be a good way you can connect to fire. Does it actually mean that you need to ignite something in your life or burn something off? Or did you have an experience with fire that you can start journaling? And when you journal, you don't know what insights that suddenly pop up through your subconscious in your writing, and you might have an awareness that you need to be aware of what is current in your own life, which brings you back to your own wisdom, to your own experience, whether you're an adult or a child. So that's the beauty of doing that.
yeah.
Um,
What because that Andrew, for me, listening to that and reading a bit, it brings the child or anyone reading that really back to the elements, doesn't it? Like you gave that example of the fire, you've got water, air, and the earth, of course, and anything out in nature. And even if they live in the cities, they've got it internally, that they can draw in on, and like you're saying before, that influence is in there. They can start journaling and quite often, like you're just saying, wonder where did that come from, that idea or that concept, and it makes them consciously think about it while they're journaling.
yeah, and it comes from themselves. Like
Yes.
so often today, we're on computer games and things like that, where all the information's been given to us, and we have to strategize or whatever the game is that they're doing. Um, Through our mental mind. This comes from the intuitive
Yes.
wisdom within us, from our experience, or from uh, you don't know what from. It just comes from deep within. So this comes from your own computer program within. Like your own experience of your version of living this life. So, and what wisdom you need to have for you as a person.
Beautiful.
So I think that's just, and that there's so much research around journaling and around that as well.
What's the reception with that sort of book? You've obviously shared that with many different children.
Yeah, that was the latest one. So I released that in June, I think last year,
Okay, yep.
in 2023. And yeah, I have had some really good responses. Quite a few adults buy them, especially for people who love being out in nature. It's not designed just for that, but for the nature lovers, of course. And then it's been, uh, I sort of looked at it for parent or any, not so much children, but it's been surprising the amount of children that have come and like on my stall or something like that, and parents say, which one would you like? And they say, I want this one. And they're like, you sure you want that one? Yes, I want this one. Let's go. And some even say, go away and we'll think about it. And they go, come back and go, I want this one, daddy or mum. And so, yeah, it's been, I really enjoy being on a stall and or being in the public where children, where people come and they just, I'm curious to who comes, whether they're educators or parents and children, but I'm encouraged by parents that come, and because these are not just normal books, and sometimes children who can't read look and they like them, and I feel that they on a intuitive basis know that they want them, and
Yes.
then I hear sometimes a bit sad to hear parents say, "Oh no, that's too old for you," and it's like, well, no, it's not. But they make that judgment, and it's sometimes it's a bit sad for me to see them walk away, and the children look back longingly at the book, and I'm like, oh, you know,
Because they
it's not.
intuitively resonate with the pictures and the photos that you've, whether it's a hand on a
Well,
rock or in the fire. Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily this book or the books when they're on display. So they might like a particular one, this one as well. And the judgment often comes from not often, but occasionally I see parents that judge for their children. It's like, oh, and I can get it because parents, they've got a limited amount of money and here's their child wanting something else. Um, but this is more than just something else. This is like something that all my books are something that you can go back to, and
Yes.
and it's my mission to try and create. How to explain that to parents that this is not just another book. Like I haven't seen any other. There's the books of. I think a while back, I was probably inspired by what's his name? He was an American and he had some children book. Wayne Dyer.
Oh, Wayne
Some of
Dyer.
his books.
Yes.
Yeah, some of his children's books was quite. I was inspired by the wisdom of life experience for reflection through him. I would say was an influential uh, inspired me as well to that sort of way of reaching out to parents and children. Yeah.
Yeah, because a collective effort, isn't it? Like you're saying before, with the teachers, parents, and children, that triangle of information and being able to bring all that together and work cohesively together for the betterment of your child. But also, I love the fact that and I've said it before, that the parents are directly involved, and quite often they'll be able to reflect themselves and then proactively create that culture within the family, and even like that example you gave before where the child gave the mum a star. Like that's beautiful, not just beautiful emotionally, but brilliant as well. That the child of 8, I think you said, had the sense and the intuition and the heart space to, and the confidence to say, "Hey, mummy, I love what you've done, and this is why I'm giving you this."
And then giving them the word, because
Yes,
sometimes when they're young, those concepts, they might want to do it, but they don't have the words to say what it is. So persistent, which is not giving up, is a concept when you're like 7 or 8, you don't know what that word is. So you're introducing that word. And so then they're able to see that and then call it out. I mean, I had a 5-year-old throw a chair and ran outside. And then I just let him have some space for a little while. And because I knew he wasn't going very far, but then he came in and opened the door and he was like, "Hey, Mr. Holt, um, I'm bouncing back, aren't I?" I said, "Yes, you are. I'm very proud of you for bouncing back because in the past you never came back um, in the room." And then we often make the mistake we can make the mistake of being critical. Well, you shouldn't have done it, and that brings guilt because obviously when he flipped his lid, he wasn't. You don't think that, and you just do things that you regret. And so, yes, you are bouncing back. And so, well done. I'll give you a shooting star for bouncing back. And just come over here. We'll have a little yarn. Next time when you do this, maybe what sort of strategies could we use? So you go down what he could use as a strategy when he's in a space where he can have a conversation around that. So he had that, it gave him the language of understanding what resilience is through a 5-year-old language of bouncing back. So teaching these, it's so important because then they can see what it is as well, and then the next level is they've been seen for it, but then the next level is them taking ownership of it and seeing others and becoming a leader, and sharing that. One thing that I'm going to say about that I didn't mention before, that this book, The Shooting Star,
yes,
I did the method, And then I thought, oh, I'm going to, because I've written a couple of children's books before in the Wise Kids series, I'm going to create a book that introduces that story and it actually honors grandmothers because the grandmother helps the person in the book, helps the main character who's just moved to a new location. And then they give shooting stars. I had 18 children from around the world
I
illustrated
was
because I
going to
love
ask
creating
that. Yeah,
space. I love creating space for kids to shine. And so you've got all these children that some chose to paint, others chose to use crayon,
and they were done
or
from children all around the world, Andrew, weren't they?
yeah, from all over the world. I've got
I,
this one.
I remember you
This one
sent
here's
that.
from
I remember you sent that quest
Indonesia.
out, and yeah, that just watching that from afar, just watching how you went about, yeah, bringing the children in from all around the world, and yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry you keep going. I just remember that process and that time. Yeah,
it was a beautiful process. I don't, if I knew what I was thinking I was doing at the beginning, I think I don't know because there's quite a few hurdles of I had to get language interpreters. I had people from Africa to South America to Indonesia to Solomon Islands. And then I had people pull out, they just didn't answer my emails or anything like that, or wouldn't answer the calls. So then I had to make the decision to cut them off at the title. So there's lots of hurdles and everything. But after 2.5 years and a beautiful GoFundMe program that I had someone help me get over at the last minute as well
beautiful.
when I needed just that little bit extra. Yeah, and so then we had a beautiful launch in 2021. In actually, it's coming up to 3 years now in
Wow,
April. Um, we all came onto the Sunshine Coast at Yandina at the Ginger Factory, where there's a place there where we can present. There was 9 children from Australia, but 8 were there because one's in Canberra couldn't make it, and we had 3 on Zoom from overseas,
wow,
from Indonesia and Germany. Yeah, and we had a beautiful presentation in honouring them of where they did in the illustration journey. Obviously, some of them were a bit shy because they were like, "Oh, I've got better than what I was now." And then it's like, "No, you did the best you can at the moment," because it took 2.5 years
yeah.
for this to come about, and so their drawings evolved over that time. So
Uh,
if anyone wants to see that, you can go onto my website and look at the profiles where I asked children. Each of them had to practice using shooting stars to each other, ranging from 6-year-old in the Czech Republic to a 19-year-old in Africa, and what that concept meant to them, and then who do they think they need as a shooting star in their lives, and what's their message for humanity. So there's some really beautiful comments if you go to the profiles in on my website, andrewgholt.com.
Yep.
And then the important thing, which I haven't mentioned, one more thing that goes on. Everyone's been giving shooting stars, but at the end of the story, Mum says, "I'm so proud of what you created, but there was one person you forgot to give a star to, and that's yourself." And
Beautiful.
that's when I created the journal, my shooting star journal, where every night before you go to bed, you think of 3-star qualities you're sending you, 3 in someone else, and then just draw a fun picture.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
I've had adults who've grabbed that who've said, "Look, I've had some problems with depression, and I've forgotten what my strengths are, and I think this is going to help me." So um,
Yeah,
very powerful.
such a powerful and important tool that you created there, like you say, for the children, and but also anybody that struggles with or is struggling with depression or self love. It will quite often get busy, and we don't reflect back on ourselves and acknowledge the good things that we do. And
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I mean, we grew up in a culture of knocking our mates down and, and thinking that's a fun thing to do, which it's part of our culture, but it also, um, can be detrimental as well in us not actually understanding who we are and what our strengths are or not believing in our strengths. Um, and then thinking that it's not okay to be proud of our strengths and that we are valuable in that and it's worth knowing and acknowledging that. And so I guess I'm creating a counter culture of acknowledge rather than knocking each other down is but to build each other up through acknowledgement. I mean, in sport, if you're great on the wing in soccer or forward, well, that's where you're going to be playing, and we'll support you in that. So we know that's your strength as a skill base. Um, and so, no, and we all come together as a team and we place ourselves in that. So I often feel like in a classroom, I've got so many children with so many different strengths. We've got our weaknesses, and if there's no shame in that. Like I'm not very good at organised, so being organised because I'm a bit creative, I have to be aware of that weakness, and then so I need someone to help structure me or put in place things that I need to help myself with more
yeah.
structure and organisation.
Using the trying to use the left and the right hand side of your brain at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
fantastic. So with the yeah, I love what you've done. So have you got any more books sort of in the pipeline, or is there anything else that you're sort of working on?
Yeah, so with the Wise Kids series, there's three in the books. So the apple tree one that I shared before, which
Yep.
is this one, the first one, and then after that one's being grounded, being present, hence the strong tree, and the analogy of tree in the book, and mixed with the understanding of a bit of the base chakra, some of the psychology of that, of being grounded, being present, being here right now. There's a little bit of that touch throughout that, and then merging into the wise water world, which is about flow
Okay.
and water
Right.
and emotions, and understand our bit of our intuition and following our trusting ourselves a little bit in through that. And the one that because I had the vision 10 years ago for three books, so that's the one I'm working on now. Is the next one about being in our power, um, and yeah, are we overpowering others or are we not in our power? So it's a fine dance a dance we always play with all of our relationships, whether you're a child or an adult. But yeah, so that's coming out in the third book, which I'm aiming to have done this year, um, and released next year. It'll be 10 years since I released the first book
That's
in
excellent.
2015.
I,
So yeah, all of these are lessons that I need to keep learning, and a couple of people close to me goes every now and again say, Andrew, I think you just need to have a bit of a look in that book again. And I go, okay, yes, I know some of the
we,
wisdom that I've shared. I need myself. So
we all need that gentle reminder from time to time, don't we?
yeah, true.
Yeah, I
Um,
love Andrew that you've brought in the ancient wisdoms. I suppose if I can sort of go down that path for a moment, um, we even though we call it teaching, we're actually, and you've mentioned it before, the younger children have got that natural purity and that natural intuition. It's almost like we come into this world with that sacred knowledge within us and things about chakras and our energy levels and things like that. We Do you agree? Or do you see that within your children that the younger ones quite often will have that? We call it that, and I've heard this expression before that that child's got old eyes. They're very wise, and they seem to come into this world with that wisdom. So, what your role, from my perspective, and seeing it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is not just teaching, but also creating the environment that they get to relearn and rediscover what's already within them. And that word empowerment that you brought up before.
yeah, exactly, Billy. That's it's yeah, creating a space where they feel comfortable to share, because as they get older, they realize that's whatever they see, or might be a little bit different to what's our society is constructed as normal. And children want to fit in with their peer groups and with so it's about being open and to create space where we're non-judgmental, and that you bring in what you want to. They don't even realize that it is wisdom. They just may say something, or I was sitting doing like a little mindfulness activity in a school I think it was down near Caboolture as well at the time, around a tree, and then someone said, "Oh," I said, "Oh, what?" We were just sitting, feeling the breeze and listening to the sounds. And after we finished, someone's said, "Oh," I said, "What did you experience?" They said, "Oh, it's I was with the whales. I was speaking whale." I said, "Oh, how did that sound?" And so we become, well, I was thinking like on what is that, Dory, or whatever, that fish, yeah, the Finding Nemo. And then some of them said, "Oh, well, I can speak dolphin." And so we all had these interesting conversations like this, as we're all having fun, making sea noises, going back. And then it wasn't until I got home that night, there was a full moon in Pisces, and I was like, interesting,
Wow. Yeah.
interesting. My intuition goes, oh, well, there was some sort of connection with the young, like, who know, they're not aware. I'm not necessarily aware, but I like to create a space just for that expression, and whatever was happening was meant to happen at that time. But sometimes I feel like I get an insight like that. It's like, that was interesting. No, I don't go deep down the rabbit hole about it. I just say that's interesting how the moon was up and it was in Pisces, which is water, and
Yes.
here we are. The kids are leading. I was creating space for them to lead where to go.
And that
Yeah.
Pisces also as the creativity was what I was thinking as well. That you intuitively knew that yeah, not only the water but creating that space for them to be themselves and to express the sounds of the ocean and the whales and whatnot. Yeah,
So yeah, it's I find it a privilege to be work with children. I learn a lot from them, but I find it a little bit frustrating in the system that doesn't allow that. And so I do my best within the system to create space for that expression and outside as well. I would dearly love to be able to do my books and travel around schools in some format and have some and working towards having an online portal where parents can be supported and guided into ways that they can do that as well.
definitely sounds like potential down the road for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I might just, I've just got a few questions to finish up with, I guess. What is what is your why? What inspires you to do what you do, Andrew?
Um, my why, excuse me, I've got to sneeze in a minute.
That's okay.
Um,
If you need to sneeze, yeah, bless you, bless you.
my why has been the pain that I see in children who are not able to express themselves. Um, and for them for create a better generation in the future. Like I don't actually have children myself, so I think that's probably why I've put all this effort into doing that. And my consistent of being traveling and being a bit of a gypsy traveler, the main thing that I have had is my love of working with children. And so that's my whys is and to try and see parents struggling in that, and to be able to maybe offer a tool that can support them in supporting their children, and also
Beautiful.
educators within the system as well and at home.
Uh,
So that's my
Um,
why.
if I
Yeah.
can just to expand on that, are you? I noticed you've mentioned the system. Have you seen your influences on other teachers where you travel and where you've taught in various schools? You mentioned
Not as much as I'd like.
not as much. Yeah,
Particularly the younger ones coming out from uni are more happy to experiment and trial different things. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the younger ones. So maybe that's sort of the focus that I can for new graduates and things who like setting up and trialing things a little bit as they learn to manage and run classrooms and environments. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I guess from I've been an adult teacher before, and you do have to stick with the curriculum and a fair bit of structure there. But yeah, you'd like to think, particularly with school children and the young ones, that there's that element of creative space for you guys and that little bit of room to move to be able to include books and things or concepts that even if you're not allowed to share your books literally at school. But the concepts that you are and I mean if it's a good thing and it's beneficial for the children and the families of the area, yeah, I find it almost bamboozles me that's not encouraged more.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I might just have to plug you in because my battery's about to die. So I'll be.
Yes, no problem.
Uh, okay, all good to go.
No problem. All right, we don't have too much longer. Mate, what are the key areas, in your humble opinion, to happiness, peace, and being all of you?
I really feel that, yeah, that's a great question. I really feel that being able to honor yourself and what you love and what you love to do, to be able to find that and to be able to live sharing that, I think it gives you a contentment and a feeling of purpose. Um, yeah, so I really feel that is finding what you love and creating balance within that. You know, you can get over passionate and you can overwork yourself within what you love, but you need that balance of time out and space for you. Because I'm creating space for kids to shine, I need to remember to give me space sometimes to shine as well, to get those insights to help my body relax as well. So that's what I
No,
feel.
that's perfect. Yeah, and it's so vital. I think you made a good point. We need to take time sometimes to fill our own cup. In your position, you give so much to the children. You need to make sure that you're creating that time and space and that balance, like you say, for yourself to be your best version, and then of course be an example. If you're flat and not quite as energetic as you'd like to be, then that's the kids will pick up on that, no doubt.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And you did mention it before, but my last question is where can people find you online? What's the best way to
Yes.
reach out? Yeah.
Yeah, my website is andrewgholt.com.
Okay.
And you can also find me on Andrew Holt Educator Author on Facebook and Andrew G Holt on Instagram.
Beautiful.
So there, my personal one is Andrew G Holt on Facebook as well.
Oh, excellent. I might get you to send me those links, and we can put them on the bottom here. So yeah, I'd love very much encourage for everyone to go on there. And after you've listened to Andrew today, and I was going to say, Andrew, I invited you on today. We've met in person a number of times. I love your passion, not just for children, but for humanity and for people in general. You've got such a compassion and love for everyone around you that sort of just flows out. But in particular, children, like you say, and I love that you're living your passion, you're living your in your heart space, and being a fantastic example for those that children that are fortunate enough to be in your class, but their parents, their siblings, and other teachers, and anyone else that you come across in your workshops or the stalls that you hold. Anyone, So on behalf of humanity, I'd love to thank you for what you're doing, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Billy, for having a platform where I can share that out to more people as well. I really appreciate you and you stepping into this for yourself too.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll put those links on behind. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you so much again, Andrew, for sharing your wisdom and your heart. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.